Hi, hope you're all well, and thanks for joining us this evening. So my name is Carl Craig. I'm Provincial Coaching and Games Manager, and this evening we're just having an information presentation about the Club Development Officer Programme. So I suppose the background of this programme was we started it in 22 with a pilot with 2 positions across 4 clubs. Then after that, we reviewed and we rolled it out to all the clubs across the province. In the first full year, we had 72 clubs involved across 43 positions. We done a large review at that stage and changed quite a number of things. And then in 24, we had 86 clubs involved with 48 positions. And last year, it grew again in the third year with 91 clubs in the finish across 51 positions. We've just completed a review and the changes have been agreed for the coming year, which I'll speak about in a couple of minutes, by the Connacht Coaching and Games Committee. So I suppose currently we have 28 full-time GDCs or POs across the 5 counties that are managed by the 5 county head of games. I suppose traditionally our staff would have worked across a large number of county-based projects. They still do, but previously there was a large focus on schools coaching, and each of the GDCs cover a region. A number of years ago, there was an increased demand from clubs for full-time staff, I suppose based on what was happening in other parts of the country. Based on, I suppose, population, we would feel that there's maybe 6 to 8 months of the year where there's work for clubs, but very hard to justify work 12 months of the year. And also we're not making the best use of our full-time staff by having them perform in schools coaching all year round. And I suppose the last one was to, empower the clubs to drive participation rather than full-time staff driving that, particularly around the national schools. So I suppose, what will a CDO do in the club? One is to establish and strengthen the club school link, and this will be done primarily through primary schools coaching and recruiting of players to the club. So ultimately, we want as many club players in our club as possible. Establish and coordinate an excellent club nursery, which is now in place in the majority of clubs, and the CDO has been a huge part of increasing that number over the last number of years. Coordinate an excellent club Go Games program, which is on the go a long time in most clubs, and the CDO will help with that. Organising and running of club Easter camps and not cool camps. So in the first 2 years, it was part of the program, but as we explained later on, the number of weeks have been cut back, I suppose, to make the most use of the time the clubs are paying. But I think that's just a point that has to be noted here, as it was on the slide last year, and that cool camps weren't involved, but some clubs still thought that change hadn't been made. Also provide extra games opportunities for younger players, like your super games, and deliver athletic development programs for youth players in the club. Promotion of all the club activities through social media platforms, obviously to promote clubs in all the local areas. So we've done a review for the 2025 programme. We reviewed with the clubs, with the CDOs and with the schools. And I suppose the feedback largely has been quite positive. But there are a number of changes that we want to make for the coming year. I suppose the first 2, in terms of athletic development space, there's more there that clubs can avail of their hours to do more athletic development work. It had increased from in 2025 from 24, but we feel that there's more room for improvement there. And the same with the PR project. Last year we would have put a full-time person from each of the counties overseeing that, and it would have worked better than previous years. We also want to incorporate School Blitz program into the project. So this was incorporated into it in 2025, but we need to lengthen the window and have more emphasis on it. So we would have left a window of 2 weeks in 2025 to run it. I suppose the feedback is that we need to lengthen that, so we're going to go that the blitzes are run in the last 4 weeks of the project. Continue with the 19 weeks, so dictated by the Easter dates and the summer holidays. So again, that's to get the best return on investment for the clubs. The 19 weeks will align with the 2026 dates, and the new, I suppose, the real new one in it is the service level agreement, which I'll explain more later on. But this is where the reviews would have come back from, particularly from the CDOs and some schools, is that the gear and equipment needs to be standardised, and the club will need to sign this to be part of it. So I suppose a lot of clubs would have provided the gear and the equipment for the CDOs going into the schools and into the clubs, but some wouldn't have. So we need to standardise it that every CDO has the equipment to carry out their job. So the specifics of the CDO program will be 19 weeks, starting February 16th with a training week and finishes up the 27th of June. It's 36 hours per week. This was changed from 39 to 36 last year, and it worked well, and again, better return on investment for the clubs. They're employed by Connacht GAA. They're managed by the county head of games in conjunction with the regional GDCs. CDOs will be largely filled by students from third level sports science and coaching related courses. But if a club has somebody who is willing to do the role for 19 weeks, we can interview them. So I suppose the reporting structures, all the CDOs or employees are staff of Connacht GAA. The county head of games will manage the staff day to day with the county GDCs in their regions. The club steering committee, which is made up of the club coaching officer, chairperson and secretary, is put in place to help set the work programmes of the CDO. The club steering committee will meet with the regional GDC on 3 occasions, in January, April and July, I suppose, to plan and review the programme. Work schedules are agreed by the county regional GDCs and the participating club steering committee, and then it's given to the CDO to carry out the work. It's not a case that there can be multiple people in the club ringing the CDO to do various things. It's all set by the county regional GDC and the club, and then given to the CDO. There's bi-monthly meetings with the province, so they take part in place in February, April and June, and then they meet face to face with the counties every other month. So I suppose the cost of it, so overall the wage cost is 9,234 plus the PRSI. So for a full-time position, it's 10,055 euro. The cost of this to a single club is the club pays 70%, the county pays 20%, and the province pays 10%. So if a club is getting a full CDO, they will pay 7,039 euro. And in the case where that's been split between 2 clubs, it's 3,519 euro. Or with 3 clubs, it'll be 2,346 euro. The county, as I said, contributes 20%, so that's 2,011 euro. And Connacht contributes 10,000 of the overall costs of each position, which is 1,005 euro. Connacht GAA will be the employer and carry all employer liability. Connacht GAA and the counties will manage all the recruitment of the CDOs, which again I'll touch on why we do that later on. So the club's responsibilities. The coaching officer is to set up a club steering committee, and all the clubs that would have been in it in previous years will have this done. It must consist of the coaching officer, the chairperson and the secretary. The steering committee is to attend the educational evening, which will take place in November. This is a recommendation we would have brought in 2 years ago, and it has worked really well, where the clubs come in and they know fully what they're getting into, and it allows us to plan for the CDO being in the club prior to the CDO coming. And I suppose we found that the clubs that are the best planned out or the most planned out get the most out of the CDO. There's no point in trying to start planning in February, the week before the CDO comes, because there's a lot of things that need to be done in terms of contacting schools, getting timetables set up, etc., etc. And particularly if you're sharing with one or two other clubs, there needs to be planning done so that everyone gets a fair allocation at the CDO. I suppose another stipulation of the club is the clubs must promote all codes associated with the club. Dual clubs must promote both codes, and if not, the position will be terminated. Thankfully, to date, we haven't had to terminate any positions. We've had to meet with a number of clubs, and clubs have fallen in line, in fairness, and worked with us on it. But it's very important that all codes are promoted equally. Each club must have a club planning document adequately completed. The 70% payment, or whatever the split is, depending on if it's 1, 2, or 3 clubs in that model, the first payment is to be in by the 24th of October 2025, and the second payment in by the 1st of April 2026. The reason we asked clubs to have it in so early in terms of the 24th of October is that we have to go recruiting in the next probably 2 weeks to get third level students, and we can't offer them placement positions unless clubs are committed to taking part in the program. And realistically, the only way we can get clubs to fully buy into it is if they have to put down money for the placement. Clubs must follow policy for coaching and games. And again, we've had no issues with that. All our clubs are very compliant. And promote the work of the projects within the club through social media, gear and equipment. And I suppose this is broken down, is that each club needs to provide 2 sets of club gear to each CDO. So that's a tracksuit and a t-shirt. And ultimately that's to promote your own clubs within your own schools, so that when they're going in, they're not just wearing random gear. Your club crests are on show. I suppose it goes back to the piece where we're trying to recruit players from the schools into the local clubs. Clubs must also provide equipment needed to carry out the program based on the play numbers. One of the recommendations I mentioned earlier is that clubs must sign a service level agreement to provide gear and equipment to take place in the CDO program. So the gear will be, again, for this year, provided by the clubs to the CDO, but the decision of the Coaching and Game Steering Committee at Connacht level was to make sure that all clubs, all CDOs have gear, is that we centrally provide that gear. And we're in a process at the moment of getting the best offer we can for that. So the county's responsibility is to have the initiative as part of their county business plan, which all the counties do. Day-to-day management of the employees by the county coaching and game staff. They must ensure proper upkeep of the timetables. Monthly face-to-face meetings with all the CDOs, which has been happening. They pay 20% of the contribution to engage in the educational nights, which I said has been a good success from club, county and provincial point of view over the last 2 years. Provide county gear if a school is made up of students from a large number of clubs. So then from a provincial point of view, our responsibility is that we are the employer. We pay 10%. We organise the education even for the clubs prior to the projects. We put on bi-monthly meetings with some ongoing training. We recruit the staff from the various colleges. there's 19 courses that we can pull from. There's quite a body of work on that in terms of we had 51 people in it last year, so we had to recruit all of them and interview them. We provide a training week at the start of the program, and any other additional training requirements that's needed around coaching, vetting, and safeguarding. The administration of weekly payroll for each of the CDOs. So I suppose how a CDO would work if it was a one club model. So these would be clubs in, larger clubs in the urban areas. And you can see there where we try and give them 2 days off so that they're not working 6-7 days, because I suppose ultimately their third level students, or most of them are. So you would see there how each day they'd be in from Tuesday to Friday, they would be in the schools coaching, and then they might do 2 evenings of work. Now this is agreed, as I said, by the county GDC that's over your club and the club steering committee. So we were not set to this Wednesday or Friday night, but again, we can't have them out every evening and every day. So a lot of clubs run their GAA games on a Saturday morning, so they would be available to help out on that Saturday morning. A 2-club model would be something like this, where you might have 2 days of coaching in the schools for one club, you might have 2 days of coaching for the other club, and then you'd have a nursery either night in the club. And then we would have a small number of hours allocated here so that the CDO can do some planning and administration work, which is part of the role. And then this is a breakdown. You can see across the 3 different colours of a sample of what a club with 3 might look like. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it takes a good bit of collaboration between the clubs to make all of this work. So I suppose the benefit to clubs is that with increased club membership, increased revenue for the club through membership, increased revenue from extra camps. A lot of clubs are running Easter camps now, the last number of years since the CDOs came in. Decreased the workload on volunteers, increased participation levels of children from each age cohort, establish and strengthen the club school link, increased exposure of the club through social media postings that all the coaching going on in the schools, the nursery is happening, etc., etc. And then decrease injuries through appropriate athletic development programs at youth level. As I mentioned earlier, that is increasing over the last couple of years, but there is more scope for improvement there for clubs to use all their allocated hours and do some more athletic development work. So I suppose the timeline of what we're looking at here, the project concluded at the end of June. We spent July reviewing it. We're recording the presentation today, September 15th, and the expressions of interest will be sent out to every club today. From here, clubs have 2 weeks to put in their expression of interest, and then from there, clubs have till the 24th of October to get their first payment in. I suppose this is the date where we find out the clubs are serious about taking part in the project. We will then start interviews for the third level students, and then in 2026, I suppose the major dates is February 16th is when the first day of it starts. So they will be at the Connacht Centre for 3 days that week, and they'll be out for 2 days meeting the clubs and the schools, and then they'll be fully in the clubs the week after. The second payment has to be in by the 2nd or the 1st of April, and then the programme finishes on the 27th of June. So it's a couple of frequently asked questions that we've got over the last couple of years. I'll just quickly run through them. Will the club be part of the interview process? So no, there won't be a representative. There'll be a representative from the province and from the county on each of the interviews. But with the volume of clubs that we have in. It's just not possible to include all clubs. As I said, we had 91 in last year, so it just wouldn't be possible. I suppose clubs have been wary in asking this question over the last few years, but I think any club that has been involved in it, we have done quite a good job in terms of interviewing and recruiting so far with very little issues overall. So we're happy with that process. Will the CDOs be allowed to coach in the second level schools? So no, this project isn't included in the project, as it just would take up too many hours of the project, really. I suppose it has been discussed at county and provincial committee level, and it has been decided on a number of occasions not to have the second level schools in it. Also, obviously, the majority of the second level schools have players coming in from management clubs, so it's very hard to sync that up. Who organised the schedule of the CDO? So the club must first decide what projects from the list provided that they want a CDO to work on. So we'll ask them to do that the night of the education evening. Then the club will meet with the county coaching and games staff to agree the timetable. And as I mentioned earlier, the better prepared a club is, the more value they will get out of the project. Will the CDO be available before Christmas? And no, it's not available before Christmas, because the vast majority of the third level students are only available from the new year, just the way their courses are designed. So it doesn't work before Christmas. What will the CDOs do on the school holidays? So I suppose originally when we set it up back in 2023, the project was 26 weeks, but we cut it back to 19 and 20 weeks over the last number of years. This decision was taken due to feedback, particularly from the review in 23. It came back from a lot of clubs that there was too much downtime between the midterm break, Easter, and in July when the schools were finished. The clubs basically weren't able to fill the hours of the CDO. So the only time there will be holidays now will be on Easter. And as I mentioned, many of the clubs now run Easter camps. One, to get extra participation, but also as a fundraising mechanism for their underage unit. Can the CDO coach the coaches in the club? So no, the CDOs aren't qualified to do that. That's the role of the qualified Sport Ireland coach developers. And there's many of them in each of the counties. All you have to do is just ask your county head of games for that assistance. I suppose one of the main ideas behind the project originally was that the CDOs would be doing a lot of the national school coaching, and it would free up our full-time staff who are all coach developers, and they can go into the clubs and do more coach developer work. Will there be a stipulation in the contract that they have to complete the 19 weeks? So yes, there is stipulation in that contract. What action can be taken if a club is not satisfied with the CDO? So once the county and province are formally notified, we can sit down and do a review with the club and the CDO at that point. But it needs to be done at the time during the project so that we can affect or make decisions. It can't be done after the project is finished. What will the role of the CDO be with the youth teams? So currently the project does not cover the CDO to be part of youth grade coaching teams. They can implement athletic development programs with this age cohort and provide extra games opportunities through super game centres, but not be part of management teams for this age group. This is, I suppose, the role of the volunteer coaching officers, and it's never envisaged that CDO would take over from the volunteer in that position, in that role. If a club wants to set up an athletic development program, are the CDOs qualified to do this? So depending on the course the CDO comes from, they may have a qualification to develop athletic development programs, but most don't. The way this works is that Daniel Ford, who is our full-time Connacht GAA S&C officer, will develop the athletic development programs, and the CDO will be qualified to oversee the program in the club. The better prepared a club is on this, the more they will get out of the project. So again, this takes quite a bit of planning, so a month or two at least beforehand to make sure that you have facilities, equipment, etc. in place before the CDO starts. We also have a Connacht GAA athletic development course that volunteers in the clubs can take part in to do alongside the CDO if they're doing athletic development programs in the club. Them programs are starting over the next month in each of the counties. So please get in contact with us if you have coaches willing to take part in them courses. So our CDO is available to work on cool camps. So they're not available to work, are available because their placement ends before camps start. But we can plan if clubs want them to be part of the cool camp program. We can sit down with the CDO and ask them are they willing to stay on and help the club with it. But this needs to be flagged quite early so that we can talk to the CDO. I suppose it was taken out, the July piece, as I mentioned earlier, was taken out after 2023 because many clubs didn't have work for the CDO in that month. So the service level agreement, which I mentioned earlier, so why have we put that in this year? So a constant response from the annual reviews show that the supply of tracksuits and equipment has been extremely varied. In many cases, neither were provided. So to participate in the 2026 programs, clubs will need to sign a service level agreement. It will be provided along with the first invoice. So what are in the terms for the SLA? Clubs commit to providing the following: 2 sets of club tracksuit, trousers, t-shirt, half zip and jacket. And then the cost of 20 footballs, bibs and cones, or a share of it if that's split between 2 and 3 clubs. So it's just very important that the CDO, when they're going into schools, have footballs and schlitters with them to basically carry out the work. In a small number of cases, the CDO wouldn't have received enough and would be maybe going in with 5 or 10 footballs or schlitters to cover 20 or 30 students, which just isn't good enough. It must be signed by the club secretary and coaching officer. So who provides the gear? So Connacht GAA will organise the provision of equipment. Clubs will be invoiced for their share of this based on the number of hours that they're allocated. We're currently trying to procure the best price through a bulk order, but we're looking at roughly €350, give or take. Any hurling club taking part, it'll be a bit more than 350, as there's more schlitters required and they are also more expensive. So it's the club's responsibility to provide the club tracksuit clothing to the CDO. Clothing size will be provided for once your CDO is picked. You'll have them well in advance, but it's important that the gear is given to the CDO. So again, that they're wearing it when they're doing the work in your club. Okay, thanks very much.